Guys, welcome to our wonderful meal planning and meal prepping workshop. I wanted to dive in first, give you guys a little welcome video because we're going to move things over to the kitchen shortly. I'm going to break this video down and then compile it back up together so it's just one smooth sailing. But there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about before that maybe I haven't mentioned prior in the other course, which is going to be replaced with this one or amalgamated. We'll see how it all turns out at the end. One thing that's really important when we start on a new venture is to understand that our energetic imprint, or how we feel towards the event, is going to tell us how the event is going to go. For example, the reason I want to bring up a little bit of the energetics with this and why I think it's super important is that I'm really particular, for example, about my ingredients. And I'm going to dive into this a little bit with you guys when we're doing the actual meal prep. I might meal prep one recipe in front of you guys just so you could really see. What I really think the focus is going to be is on creating the effective meal prep station. And I think that that's where so many people get frustrated and feel that meal prepping takes so long. And the first time you're going to do it, have the expectation of it taking at least 2.5 hours. And that's like really good if you do it in that time, but it also saves you doing anything other than throwing it in whatever dish you need to cook it in, or whatever it is that you, the crock pot, whatever. So just know that it is actually going to reduce your amount of dishes and your amount of time prepping. It's like you're doing it all condensed in one spot, which means also that you're actually saving upwards to, think about it, if you're doing 7 days worth of meal prepping, and it's only taking you 2.5 hours, and you would be doing this daily, and it would take you at least 45 minutes to make dinner on top of cooking time, or 30 minutes to make dinner on top of cooking time, you are still saving some time. All right, efficiently over time, you will probably get to meal prepping in about probably an hour and a half. So it can get really effective. It can be really fun. It's something you can include your children in, your family in. This is a way to really empower people in their kitchen. And that's a place you really want to have a lot of power. Think of the kitchen as being your pharmacy, and having access in your kitchen to literally all of the same components, compounds, and chemicals that a pharmacy is using synthetically based. So I know that seems a little bit far-fetched, but if you look at what you have, like TED Talks had this wonderful man, if you want to look it up, he was an oncologist, and it was a talk about cancer and I don't know if it was thermogenesis, maybe. But anyways, basically what he was saying is that you can literally have strawberries, grapes, all these things that have resveratrol and all of like vitamin C, all these chemicals that actually help to reduce cancers and help with optimal health. And they're just in your kitchen. And we really rarely turn to the kitchen as a place of medicine anymore. So I want to really share a little bit about that moving forward too. This welcome video is also to include the fact that how you approach your new venture is going to also impact your food. Now, I want to give you guys a little bit of background on that. So if you go to a restaurant and you are at a very fancy restaurant, the ambiance is wonderful, and the chef is in the kitchen, and he's creating this like creative dish for you that has been poured love into, right? You taste that energy and that feeling and that ambiance. And that's almost even just as good as the meal itself, with the ingredients that are wholesome and whatnot. So I want you to think about that when you're creating something new, when you're going into don't look at this as a chore, okay? Look at this as a beautiful way that you get to empower yourself and your family, and you get to create. This is an area that we sometimes put a lot of negative energy into, a lot of frustration, a lot of, even with meal planning and meal prepping, just like this rushing that we just need to get through it as if it's just this thing we have to do. It's not just this thing we have to do, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. So really taking into consideration, you actually want to pour some love and attention and slowness and purposefulness into what you're creating. And the reason is that your dishes will reflect what you did to them when you eat them. And I know that seems a little bit strange, but because we're all molecules that interact really quickly together, whatever imprint you touch or put onto a thing or another object, we still manipulate objects by touching them, and then touching ingredients. And this also creates like a synergy of molecules that are impacted by our own. So be aware of just your sentiments sometimes about how you're feeling towards what you're doing. And just really starting to get clearer that, don't think about don't think about next week when you're working on your meal planning today. Do everything presently in the moment. Now, another tip is to be very conscious of the ingredients that you use. For example, I'm very particular with meat, and I'm like slowly going vegan myself, but be very moving forward, we're not going to be doing that in this meal plan because, all right, so when we consume animals and poultry and all of these things, how they were butchered and how they were killed, and if they've been raised with antibiotics and maltreatment and all of these things, is that a type of meat that's full of trauma, that's had like, its own molecules really, really impacted negatively? Is that the kind of meat you really want to put in your body? Does it matter? Yeah, for me, it matters. And I think that really consciously, if you are someone who's trying to live consciously, it should matter. And it should matter to all of us in our collective what we're consuming. And which is why we eat in our family very little amounts of meat now. And we respect the meat that we've eaten. And we have conversations about the animal that died for us. It's not morbid, it's not something we do every day. But when let's just say my daughter will say something about one of the pieces of food that she doesn't want to eat, I do very much so say kindly that, this animal died for you, so please don't disrespect it by wasting it. And we just make a point to, like, 2 chicken breasts will feed a family of 4 here. And that's like, and with leftovers. Okay, so we really truly honor the fact that animals are, yes, killed, but we honor their life, and we try our best to sustainably, if we're going to consume them, choose the ones or the companies that are known to have the most humanitarian process towards it, most intimate killing process. And that's important moving forward to think so. Okay, to take those things into consideration that sometimes we are raised to just take for granted. So moving forward, so that's just a little food for thought for you guys. One of the things that we will talk about just very briefly is we're going to dive into the meal planning portion. I will give you that wonderful slide deck. Put it in now at 8:25. So without further ado, I'm super excited for you guys to join me on the meal prep station walkthrough so that you can have some tips, tricks, and tools that will make this easier and shorter for you in your venture to meal prepping. Approach this whole system with joy, with ease, with bliss. It's actually really fun. If you do bring in your family, I will not be bringing my family in for the video just for time constraints and for you guys to honor your time and my time. But really, I hope you enjoy just learning about how easy this could be and how much time this will save you moving forward, and how easy it is once you've done it for a month, once you've done it every week or bi-weekly, it will just become routine, and it will just become something that you will want to incorporate into your life forever, and teach your children hopefully to have this just automated thing and system to have in place so that you can spend your time and extra time in the evenings doing things that are going to be more nourishing to your time, education wise or purpose wise, or whatever it is that, maybe you want to spend more time with your family, maybe you want to be outdoors more. There are so many things that I can think about that I don't want to be worrying about daily, specifically in the areas of meal planning and meal prepping. It's proven that neural pathways and your decision-making abilities actually have a timeline and a stop during the day. Everything after that is considered on autopilot. So with that in mind, think about having had a very busy day at work, and then you have to get home and try to figure out something to eat. Those are the days you order pizza, because that's like ingrained in probably a habit too. because you are no longer capable of making decisions. Uh, it's not that humanity is bad for this, it's just that our best decision making time will always be first thing when we wake up. So just to be aware that this is one thing now that you can no longer, you don't have to worry about. Welcome to the revised version, or the new conscious meal planning. Kind of just like a master class, tips, tricks, how to do it, and the revised workbook that I'm going to share my screen and show you guys, just to make it a lot easier. I have a lot of tips and tricks already written out for you guys. So we're going to dive right in. So I'm going to share my screen, which is this one. Share, voila. All right, guys. So let's see. We can make this a little bigger. Okay. All right, so we're gonna, and I'm just gonna get rid of that, and that'll make it a little bit bigger. So I'm actually just gonna show it to you through what it's going to look like for you. It's going to be downloaded again as a PDF version. You're gonna find it right beneath this video. So I hope that you really enjoy what I am offering you guys. It's got a whole new branded look, but a lot of the content is going to be similar, but I have created a lot less paper to print to save our trees, and I'm gonna give you guys tips on how to effectively meal plan for ease in your life. Okay, so here's just kind of a little workbook. It kind of explains a lot of what I'm gonna say, but it's just talking about organization, why it's important, creating tailored meal planning for you, why lifestyle is important to take into account. But right now I'm just gonna show you guys the meal planner. So I've made it really simple in the sense that, as you can see, it says Monday. Before it was like this compiled, each day was, each meal was different, and each day took up almost like a page. So here we have an entire week's worth, which makes it super easy to just stick on your fridge. It's just really simple. And so what you really want to be doing with effective meal planning is, first of all, you're going to take about an hour every week, or you're going to take an hour and a half every 2 weeks to create and compile a meal plan. Now you have to think about how you want to do groceries. If you're someone who is only going to be going to do groceries every second week, then you can print up 2 of these, which is my recommendation, and then you can do that. I recommend, this is just from a nutritional therapist standpoint, doing these weekly for the simple reason that it leaves a little bit of room for error, and you can always have fresh ingredients on hand. Whereas if you are buying bi-weekly, it's a little bit tougher to keep things fresh for that long. And pretty much after about 3 to 5 days, depending on where your fruits and vegetables are coming from, they've lost all their nutritional value anyways. So that's something to be conscious of that a lot of people don't realize. Even if we're trying to be super healthy, it doesn't always work, because much of what we're getting is from far, far away, and already takes days to get to us. So that's why when you can shop within your 100-kilometer radius, you are able to get your fruits and vegetables from there, even if they're not organic, so long as they're not GMO'd, even if they're not organic and you wash them really well, you're still going to get more nutritional content. That's something that came all the way from California. For example, where we live in Canada, northern or central Canada, that's like days on a truck. And so it's already lost most of what the nutritional content is, and likely it's not organic anyways. So really take those little things into consideration, is just the awareness around your ingredients, which if you want more education on the awareness around your ingredients, all of that education is in the grocery list shopping. So that's also really cool and really key. All right, so let's just dive in. I'm just gonna move this a little bit here so it's out of the way so I can see as well. All right, so let's just dive in here and really chat about all of this goodness. And so what I'm going to be educating you guys on today is just how to meal plan effectively and quickly, but always, like I said in my intro to this video, give yourself the first few times a really, really great grace period. Sorry, it's a 3 coffee kind of day today. I don't usually do videos when I'm on my cycle, but the first just kind of crept up on me, and I wanted this to be out earlier in the month. Lots happening next month, so I needed some extra space and time. So let's talk about Scheduling your time. Okay, so I'm going to educate you guys on scheduling your meal planning time around 1 hour weekly. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do that I recommend doing before you even get into this 1 hour weekly is just take about 30 minutes or even less, 15 minutes, just sit with what you ate last week. And this is a really important thing. And the first thing you want to inventory is you want to inventory your current recipes. Number one, are they healthy? Number two, how many do you have? Are you just repeating the same 5 to 10 recipes every single week over and over and over again? That actually, unfortunately, kind of leaves you open to a lot of nutritional deficiencies because you're not getting a variety. And as they say, variety is the spice of life for good reason. It's something you actually want to keep bringing into your life, is different varieties of ingredients. And especially if you can shop seasonally, that's actually a really, really great tip as well. So once you've inventoried and you've kind of really gotten this idea around, okay, I need to change, but I don't know how. So how are we going to meal plan? How are we going to bring in some new and different things? So the first thing that I recommend is using Pinterest to find recipes. So if you are not a Pinterest and you have been anti-Pinterest since the beginning, I strongly recommend you shifting out of this. The reason is that Pinterest is a search engine website, and it's not, there's no point in reinventing the wheel when Pinterest has been as successful as it has for so long. It allows you to search engine into specific bloggers recipe guides that are super, super healthy. And the thing with using Pinterest is that you're able to, after you have created Pinterest or you have logged into Pinterest, you can have boards. So you can have basically like file folders. That's what you can, the boards are like file folders where you can actually put your recipes in there for either, you can have them organized in breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or you can have them organized in gluten-free, lactose-free, dairy, or dairy-free. You can create organization in Pinterest, which is a huge plus. I'm going to teach you guys how to take this a step further because I actually only use Pinterest as my starting board. I use this as an experimentation. So what I would recommend is for your first time, and I know it seems like you're kind of going on the internet to meal plan, but it's going to save you a lot of time. So I suggest you do it anyways. So when you're doing that, either sit at your laptop, sit at your computer, and just say, okay, so for the next 30 minutes, and go ahead and time block yourself so you don't go down the rabbit hole, and a timer will usually keep you on track. Time block yourself for 30 minutes on Pinterest, just looking for either clean eating recipes, gluten-free recipes, healthy recipes, whole foods recipes, paleo recipes, alkaline recipes. So that is like what I just told you guys there are what I started my journey in search engine searches, so that I was getting what I needed for our family going and diving through autism. And it was, or like, for example, like I didn't even know how to cook GAPS. And so GAPS is like the gut and psychology syndrome diet. And so I had to research, and Pinterest was literally my only resource because there was no bloggers. There wasn't a lot of people. It was very new. And so Pinterest is, again, the thing that's great is once you find someone who is really aligned to your values and how you cook, and they'll usually give you a little introduction on who they are in their recipe. And you can now, in most websites, when you click on a recipe and you click and it opens, on most websites, you can actually just click a button that says go down to recipe instead of having to read the blog or the instructions in detail. But know that sometimes when you align to someone, like I like Oh She Glows, and I like a lot of vegan recipe providers. So when you like them, you can follow them. And so that allows you, when they put up new recipes, you are able to get access to more of their content. Okay, so that's kind of just a little crash course on how to use Pinterest to get basically the recipes that you would like to try. So the search engine has now brought you into a whole world of new recipes. And the problem with this, and I see this all the time, and I used to be one of these people, is then you kind of forget about it, or you get frustrated going through your boards looking for your recipes. So from this space, I'm going to teach you another way to do this, okay? The first thing I'm going to teach you guys to do is, or tell you guys to do, is to have your email open. Because once you find one of these recipes that you love through Pinterest, you are going to pin it into a board, and you can do this for 15 minutes straight. Just be like, okay, that looks good, that looks good, that looks healthy. Those ingredients are what I'm looking for. And if you're working with a nutritional therapist like myself, and I'm starting to take clients, so if that's something you were wondering about, having a uniquely tailored plan on what kind of ingredients would be best for you, make sure to reach out. But just know this, if you're working with someone, this is actually when you can actually put into the search engine specific foods to cook. So just say Brussels sprouts were one of your superfoods and you were missing most of the nutrients in Brussels sprouts, which you acquire in nutritional therapy. You can be like, okay, recipes with Brussels sprouts, and it will compilate this amazing, amazing amount of this amazing compilation of recipes that you can now save into a board called Brussels sprout nutritional deficiency. So if you know what you're missing, if you know what is something that you really need more of, and usually this is a hint, if you don't generally eat a lot of it, especially in the vegetable and fruit world, you likely are deficient in some of the nutrients in it, right? So that's why variety is so important. Okay, so now using our email system to keep things organized for our weekly recipes. This is what I do. It took me years of practice, and it's not even a perfect system, but it makes things so much easier. So now you spent 15 minutes timed, okay, just like compilating recipes. It's easy to do this because you're going to see a lot of things you like. Focus on the health. Make sure there's not too much dairy in it. Make sure that you're trying to follow your macros a little bit, and a macro education is going to come a little bit later. But know that you don't need a lot of, just be aware of the amount of fat content you're bringing in. Make sure your ingredients are whole. Make sure that your recipes don't contain a lot of canned ingredients that have multiple other ingredients in it. So if you're making a spaghetti sauce and there's like all the ingredients are just fresh ingredients, and there's a can of tomatoes, that's fine, that's great, that's what you're looking for. And so that's starting your process of meal planning, clean eating. And that's all I'm going to teach today, because I think this is a really great start for a lot of people that find it very difficult to shift out of ease through the microwave, ease and flow. And so a lot of my clients are business owners. So we're going to really focus on creating ease. That's the thing. If it's too complicated and it has a multiple ingredients that are just out of this world, nobody's going to do it. Okay, so just focusing that the ingredients are simple, that there's probably not too many of them. This will actually create a lot of like ease. You're gonna be like, oh, okay, I could do that. Okay, I have those spices on hand. I don't even have to buy that. So that's great. So that's part one. Now you've researched for 15 minutes. You have a compilation of breakfast, lunches, and dinners that you would like to try for like a week or 2 weeks. You now are like, okay, I think that I have these recipes. So here's the thing with the meal plan that I have put in that is new is fave recipes. So this is your inventory. So these are the recipes that you're eating currently that are both hopefully healthy and that are good, that you know your family likes, that you guys love to have at least maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe once a week, which hopefully we're gonna shift you guys out of a little bit. All right, and then we're gonna put in recipes to try. So at the beginning, what I'd suggest doing is printing out this whole workbook. And as the weeks go by, you're actually only going to print pages 5 and pages 8. And you can do that on any printer. You just click the open PDF, click the print button, and then choose the pages to print. Now, you're not even gonna have to do this forever. What's gonna happen is once you really get a great meal plan going, you've got about maybe 5 or 6, and this may take about 6 months, but it's still really, really efficient and still gonna save you a ton of time. But once you find this compilation of different recipes in like the perfect week for you, and then you have perfect weeks that meld with your schedule through your meal plan, you'll notice you won't even be printing these anymore because you'll be able to repeat them. For example, I work an 11 to 7 shift every 5 weeks. I work evening shifts every 5 weeks. So on those 2 weeks, I know that my life is not going to run the same as an 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 shift. So that means, and this is going to work for people who have children in sports or who have children who are doing things in the evenings or they want to do specific kind of things. I know we're in COVID right now, but it's still, things are going to start moving where they're going to find ways to, you know, still educate and keep our children busy in the evenings with hopefully exercises and things like that. So on those evenings, we want to make sure that we are prepared. So Once we have a really, really great sense of a meal plan, like such, oh, sorry, there we go. Once we have a meal plan like this with the ingredients, so this is another with the grocery list. When you have your grocery list and you bring it to the store, I strongly suggest bringing it in a, not a clipboard like this, but like one of those little, like, in French, we call them duotangs. I'm French, so I guess it's just like a little, you can buy them at the dollar store. They're just like a little booklet, like you get it for kids, for them to go to school. Okay, so I keep one for the kitchen, and it's where I put all of the things that I need rather than having paper strewn everywhere. What I like to do is just keep it organized. And so when I go to the grocery store, I actually bring that little booklet just to make my life a little bit easier and to not waste as much paper for our trees. Having access to that ingredients list, not destroyed, is great. And that's just something that I know happened to me. So just be aware that if you can maintain the ingredients list and the meal plan, and it really worked for you, you can repeat it, like example for me, every 5 weeks. I know that crock pot meals work best on my 11 to 7 shift, and the crock pot meals that I have are varietized. They're different international dishes. And so I know that they're getting a variety of ingredients, and they're very heavily vegetable based. So obviously that's effective, it's working for me, and it allows me to not have to use my neural pathways so that my brain is not so busy during the day to think about that. That is just a no-brainer. I meal prep them, which we're going to talk about after this. I meal prep them on Sundays, and then I literally just take what I've meal prepped, throw it in the crock pot, walk away, and then I get home at 7. Dinner is ready for our family. If my husband is done earlier, he can just take it literally out of the crock pot and feed it to everyone. Okay, so that's just an example of how efficient this can become. Before I had created this meal plan of like literally 5 months, or sorry, it was a month, and then it could repeat itself. There was like templates 1, 2, 3, and 4. But this was a little bit overwhelming for a lot of people from the feedback that I got. And when even I created it for myself, it was like 5 hours just to meal plan in one shot. It didn't really work for me very well. And even though I wanted it to work so badly, I realized that this is just not going to be something that's going to come easily to people who are starting out. So with this, we've now talked about search engineering and looking for our recipes. Now I'm going to tell you how to organize them so that they're easy access for the week to come. So your first 15 minutes are all going to be focused on finding the recipes. Now, for example, too, here are some really great meal board names that I use that you may want to use. Healthy recipes with sub ones inside for breakfast, lunch, and dinner snacks. Then I have crock pot meals that are very specific. And then I have allergy-based meals. So I have one that is, or diet-based meals. So I have some that are GAPS. I have an entire board that is vegan. I have an entire board that is dairy-free, gluten-free. Feel free to follow me on Pinterest. I believe my tag is, if you put in Pinterest, Natalie Pelto Heal, you can just follow me and you can look at my boards and see kind of some examples of what that looks like. Now I'm going to tell you that you're going to see some things in my boards that you're going to be like, well, that's not healthy. And this is where you kind of learn as you go. And when you become comfortable, because I've given you a whole bunch of search tags that are clean eating and all of that, I can now go on Pinterest and search out any recipe, doesn't matter how healthy it is. And I often challenge myself to make an unhealthy recipe healthy. And I think that that to me is like, this is something I like to do for our family. Now, it's taken me 8 years to be able to look at any recipe and be able to alternate and navigate recipe ingredients differently. So just note to self, like when you're looking at my recipes and you're like, oh, that one calls for heavy cream, know that I replace heavy cream with coconut milk. Like I'm already replacing many of these ingredients with other ingredients, okay? So that is, but it still will give you a great idea on how and it will give you some really great recipe ideas, especially in the vegan one, the GAPS one. The GAPS one also holds paleo recipes. There are some really great healthy options. The crock pot meals are great that I have in there. All right, so now you have the compilation. What are you gonna do to organize them? Well, you're gonna open your email system. Most email systems are similar. So Outlook, Gmail, whatever it is, it's going to have the ability to create folders. So there are 2 ways you can do this to organize yourself depending on how you feel. what I have done both ways. So you can take, so once you have hit Pinterest and you have really found a recipe that you want to try, you can first fill it out. You're going to first put it in your meal plan here, and you're going to put down where it is. Please, when you do your meal plan, when you write dinner and you want to have, for example, I don't know why it's doing this. When you make dinner and you want to, and you all of a sudden say, okay, I want crock pot meal this, make sure you write down where you found, where you put it, where you found it. So like, because if you write crock pot meal, chicken, whatever, and then you don't know where it came from, any type of extra work is going to make your life more difficult, and you're not going to be successful if it's too difficult. So now that you've spent the 15 minutes doing the thing, you've found all your recipes, you're going to have your meal planning, this beautiful thing here, and you're also going to have your fave recipes out, because you're probably going to want to put at least a couple of those in at the beginning. And then you're going to have your recipes to try. Now you're going to focus on, again, writing these recipes that you would like to try and where to find them. The thing about the recipes to try, they are going to eventually, every week, you're going to cross them out on the recipes to try, and then you're either going to put them in your fave recipes, or you're just going to let them go because maybe they weren't something you liked, but you tried it, right? And you knew that you got a different variety of ingredients. And maybe you loved it and nobody in your family did. So that happens to me often. I still bring those ones and put them in my fave recipe. I just don't bring them in as often. Okay, so these are two very important pages that you really don't need to print up every week. These will probably last you a couple months of just new things to try and then crossing them off your list. My recommendation is to always try at least 1 to 2 new recipes a week though. The importance of this is that you're going to have that variety of ingredients, you're going to have more nutritional content, and it's going to allow for your family to also benefit from this, right? So it's always not just about you, and so that's really important. I'll share, my husband used to have a lot of anxiety when I used to cook a lot of new food, so our deal was every Saturday, because it was usually a day I had off, that I would try 1 new recipe. And now this was years ago. So now I can try any new recipes and he's quite content with what I'm going to make, because we've really surpassed the point of having flavored foods that aren't going to mesh. And over time of you cooking your foods and trying new varieties, you will get really comfortable in the kitchen of which ingredients do go together. It's really just a practice like anything else. All right, so now going back into our organization system, in your email, you will actually start an email to yourself. So you will put your own email at the top. You'll put new email, put your name, your email address at the top too. And then in the comments or in the subject line, you're going to put crockpot recipes. And so you're going to then, or like you're going to put healthy breakfast recipes. And so what you're going to do then is you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to spend a bunch of time, 15 minutes, okay? It really only takes 15 minutes. But all those Pinterest recipes that you found is you're going to actually save the link at the top of the search bar, and you're going to put it in there so that it's there for quick, easy reference. Now here's another suggestion. Right above the link, you're gonna write what it is. So just say it's a healthy smoothie that you love because it had mangoes. Write healthy smoothie mangoes, want to try, or just healthy smoothie mangoes. And you're not gonna send the link to yourself. You're actually going to just keep putting links in with what the name of the recipe is on top. And then you could do one of 2 things. You could just wait till it saves as a draft and keep adding to it in your draft section, which is what I did for a few weeks. So now I have and you'll notice it if you have done the conscious detox, that this is actually how I compiled my recipes for you guys, was that I just found a whole bunch of different, very, very aligned Pinterest recipes, and I focused on putting them through this organizational system. And then I was able to just transfer it over into our lovely members, and it gives credit to these people, and they also get more traction in their website, so it benefits everyone. All right, so when you've organized that, and so just say it's been a few weeks, or really you got like 20 recipes right off the bat for breakfast. So you were super happy with that. You're like, I'm good for a while. I don't even want to search Pinterest again for a while. And I know these recipes are going to be something I'm likely going to like. You can send it to yourself and create a folder and write breakfast recipes. Now, why do you want to do this? Because when you're doing this is only for grocery lists. This is where people really get frustrated is if you're in Pinterest and you're looking for these recipes consistently, you are actually, sorry, my computer's having a moment. Once you get to your grocery list here, okay, this is where the magic happens, and this is where I see a lot of frustration, and I'm trying to take that away from you, is that your recipes need to be easy access. And I find the email system of having them just in a row by tag or by link, it creates a lot more ease in finding the ingredients that you will need, because then you're going to bring it open. So far we've done 15 minutes of researching, we've done 15 minutes of organizing. Now we're going to do about 15 to 20 minutes of just creating this grocery list. Okay. And then once it's created, that's it. So it usually takes me about 45 minutes a week or an hour and a half every 2 weeks if I'm going to be going through multiple different recipes. So once I've done, just say, for example, my breakfast is all finished, and then I have all those recipes all ready and they're all organized, I know that I can keep pulling from them if I need to and to try new ones. Let's just say I get sick of those recipes. Well, then I'm going to just either recreate an email or just add some more to my draft, and then resend it to myself and delete the original. And then I'm going to repeat this for my lunch, my dinner, and my snacks. So you've created now, I know it's 2 different websites that you're using, but what you're doing is you're using a search engine website, and then you're using your email as an organizational piece. Now, the reason I like the email, and this is why, is that you could do this anywhere. If you're traveling, or if you're staying at your parents', or you're staying somewhere and you still really want to maybe cook for someone, or you really want to focus on maintaining healthy recipes and knowing you're going somewhere that's not healthy for an extended period of time, you can access, any internet will access your email. It's easy access and you can have it anywhere. So I think that you can even have it on your phone. So I do think that that's really beneficial. And I mean, you could get really fancy and do it in Canva. You could get really fancy and you could do it in Google Drive, which also are accessible. But I find email is across the board. People generally at least know how to use their email. And I find that it's just much easier to just see all the links up, over, and down. So I hope that that gives you guys some really great tips. And I'm just going to kind of go through some other tips on meal planning that will create a little bit more ease in your life. So the first one is understand that your first week of meal planning, or your first few times, will likely take you about an hour and a half, regardless if it's for a week or 2 weeks. Using Pinterest to find recipes, and then using your email as a filing system, and then really focusing on only printing pages 5 and 8 of your workbook for your grocery shopping list and your meal plans that you can put on your fridge. And doing that until you're really, really confident that you have a couple meal plans, maybe about 4 or 5 for like just like swapping in and out. So that means you have about a month and a half of probably new recipes that are going to work for you, that mean you have a variety of different nutritional content coming in. And then this is allowing you to not even have to think about this part anymore. That 1 hour a week will then be gone, right? So long as you have your grocery list, so long as you have, and what you can do, if you want to keep your grocery list nice and clean, and especially in COVID time, this is another trick that we use at the hospital, is you can take your phone, put it in a plastic Ziploc bag, because you can still touch screen, take a picture of your grocery list, and then you can reference it at the grocery store. At the end of the day, wash your hands, throw the bag out, and your phone is still clean, and then you have not destroyed your grocery list either. So that's a little tip. Making sure that your meals are heavily vegetable based. So that is a strong suggestion, again, to work with someone who is going to allow a really, really tailored plan that's going to be uniquely fit to you of what you're deficient in. One little tip is to note that what you generally don't eat a lot of is probably what you need. So for example, if you hate Brussels sprouts, go ahead and Pinterest recipes on Brussels sprouts that are different, like different ways of cooking them. Maybe you wanted to try Brussels sprouts and bacon fat because you love bacon. Maybe that's going to change your whole experience. Is it going to be the healthiest way? No, but if you're getting what you need in, it's going to also benefit you in some ways. So at the beginning, it's more about bringing in what's good rather than always taking away what's bad. I find people find this a little bit easier, even though over time we want to do a huge detox, which we'll talk about a little bit later in another month. So then being aware of combination foods. So the reason that I'm mentioning this is that when you're doing groceries, we tend to be on autopilot of looking at recipes. And this is the unfortunate thing about recipes in our day and age, is that they are very heavily focused on our food guide, our old food guide. Remember, this food guide doesn't exist anymore. but they are still heavily based on the fact that you need to have a starch, a meat, and a protein, or sorry, a starch, a protein, and a complex carb. So this actually is not the way to eat. And if you want more information on that, the assimilation food, the conscious assimilation through body, I think it is, you have access to it in the members portal. Make sure to watch the video on watching or on seeing what combination foods you should be eating together so that you can actually do some grocery or grocery shopping a little bit more consciously with that in mind. And then you'll notice a lot of it is just taking out either the starch at dinner in your recipes or the meat. It's a lot of like the vegetables will work with starches and meats, but the meat and the meat and the starches don't generally work together. The proteins to break that down actually get canceled out. Sorry, let me rephrase. The enzymes to break that down get canceled out over time. All right, so, and if you're stuck and bored, okay, so making sure, and making sure you have 2 new recipes a week, that's super important. The reason that I really recommend this again is for that added nutritional content with different ingredients. And then if you're stuck and bored, head back to Pinterest, start to research clean eating recipes all over again. You really don't need to do the Pinterest thing too often. You can really get a good block of recipes within 30 minutes or 15 minutes really for every meal. So really don't get caught up on this that you have to do this all the time. But for your first time, it's a great resource to contemplate, find websites, find people that align with you, and maybe you like the way that they cook. Maybe you like the way they look. Maybe you like that they only use great ingredients. Maybe you like that they're homestead people. Maybe you like that they're city people. Connecting with people and getting part of communities is really going to keep you motivated and accountable to stay on track. Okay, inventory your current recipes. We talked about that. Okay, and here are just a couple tips that could work for you. These are some of the things that I do and have done. So tips are cook at dinner one time, but make sure that you have enough food in that one time to maybe eat 2 or 3 times. So what that looks like is, especially in the crock-pot meal week that I do, I always create enough food there to last, and rather than throw food out, I'm really anal about that. What I like to do is we usually have enough for lunches for the next day for my husband and then the kids if they want some. And then I actually have enough to put some in the freezer so that I can actually have an entire other meal with that. So I've cooked once and people have eaten 3 times with that meal. And it was nutritious and it could be done at different times. They can eat them later on if you freeze things. Another tip is do a cultural meal plan. If you don't know what to do, if you don't know what to eat, it's always fun to do, like, to tell your family once a month, we're going to do an international week where every day we're going to eat something different from another culture. This may be weird for you at first, but it really allows you to experience different flavors and spices because each culture that we experience has access to only different ingredients. So we like to do an Indian night, a Mexican night, Italian night, and yeah, it could be pizza, whatever. But just know that variety is also a great way to kind of have fun with it. And that always bring your kids in if you have children to help you with this process. Maybe they want to do a pub night. You know, having the 80-20 rule is a pretty important thing at the beginning. You may then eventually over time go to 100% one way. But the 80-20 rule, 80% really, really great, 20% medium, and always try if you're in the medium zone, like if you're making pizza, make it fun, buy whole grain crust or, you know what I mean? Or, you know, try to get the cauliflower crust if you can, and then make the pizza together at home. And this is usually more inexpensive and it will actually feed more people. That's what we do. And then review the mastering. Oh yeah, this is actually a really great tip, is to review the mastering the grocery store course. When we're going into meal planning and meal prepping, the missing link in between there is how do we save time at the grocery store so that we're not always going to buy crappy food and we feel empowered at understanding how to read ingredients. And so you have access to this in the membership portal, so make sure to go check that out as well. And always allow yourself the first few times when you're in a meal prepping zone to give yourself at least an hour to an hour and a half to explore. And I call it exploring because, again, when I brought in that education and in the welcome video, I really said you need to go into new aspects of your life, not with a negative attitude, because then you don't want to do it. Everyone tells you meal planning is good, but there's a reason, because over time, especially in the first month or two, once you've created this habit, it actually allows for a lot of extra time freedom and joy. And so even though the first couple times it's going to be discomfort, and really understand that it is just discomfort, Organizing and changing shifts is actually forcing neural pathways into your brain, and your ego brain, which is a part of you that your subconscious that keeps you safe and has kept you safe since you were little, is automatically going to tell you that something new, regardless of how good it is for you, is not going to be okay. It's not right. We shouldn't do it, or you can't do it. It uses many different ways and dialect in the stories that we tell ourselves. So just note that if you are having resistance to this, honestly, it is just your ego brain talking and trying to win the war of trying new things, because it's afraid that what you're about to try is going to hurt you. But it's not going to. Effective meal planning and creating strategies, ease and flow, is something that you are worthy and deserving of, so that you can have more time to do the things you love. So I hope you enjoyed that easy understanding meal program, and I will talk to you guys later. We're going to dive into our meal prepping station in just a minute.
Hey guys, so I'm just going to show you a very quick version of an effective prep station. So I'm hoping that this works because we are on my phone. Just checking everything. Okay. All right. So really, this is probably the most important part of what we are going to discuss. So I want to talk about an effective prep station and how to run it, and just some tips on prepping, and I'm going to make it pretty quick. So the first thing that I really want to share about prepping is that was a game changer for me, and I have been to prep workshops, was something like this. Now, if you have reusable bags, oh my God, please be sustainable, and that is something we're working towards. But if you don't, and this is what you have at home, I don't want it to stop you from meal planning. So, but getting one of these at the dollar store, this allows for like no messes. I even meal prep soups. And so I will put them in here, and if there's a tear, at least I'm guaranteed that I haven't lost my ingredients on the floor, have a big mess pickup. So what's nice about it is I can actually freeze my soups, just crack them open, throw them in the crock pot, and they are good for the day. Now, just to be aware, when we're meal prepping, we need to be just conscious of the ingredients that we're using. I did a whole little video on that before, but now I'm going to dive into what I like to have on my meal prep station and what are the things that I utilize the most. Now, obviously, I have a beautiful butcher's block. This is probably not what everybody else has, but if you live in a small home, I strongly suggest taking your ingredients and bringing them to a kitchen, to the kitchen table, so that you have a little bit more space to work in. Always make sure you have. So obviously this is a butcher's block. This is made out of granite. I can cut on it. It's totally fine. It's made for that. Now, if you don't have this, obviously your most important thing is to have a, I don't know why I've done a lot of videos today. A cutting board. All right, so I'm going to let you guys know that a cutting board, I use two. If I were to use cutting board, or if I was on a surface like wood, I would use two types of cutting boards. The reason is I would use one for meats if you're still eating meat, and then I would use one for vegetables. I always try to cut my vegetables first, wipe down my station, cut my meat next, wipe down my station. Okay, so that's just a really great tip. This is why this is here. I do actually always have a rag that is available to me to wipe down my station. There's always a garbage to the side here, normally, that I would actually have easy access, because I can tell you that it will only take for you to go and wash the garbage 100 times the first time you meal prep to know that next time you are going to have a garbage next to you. All right, so let's go through what I like on my meal prep station, and then I'm going to finish off with just a couple tips on how to keep things nice, flowy, and moving so that your meal prep time only takes about an hour. So most important things are, I like to have a lemon squeezer. A lot of recipes call for lemon, so that's definitely a tool that I like to have. I always have a garlic press. If you want to skip and omit this, you could always have garlic powder in most organic garlic powder in rather than using fresh garlic, although many recipes call for fresh garlic. So I like to have a garlic press close. I like to have one straight edge knife and one serrated knife. Now, usually my serrated knife is actually one of the knives that I have in my sink that's being cleaned, but I like one to cut meats, and then I mean for tomatoes and such. I only use two knives. I never, ever, ever bring in more dishes, because I find at the end that I have way too many dishes to do. And it's one of the things that is really important, is to do dishes as we go. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. I have my measuring spoons. on average, most recipes will call for either tablespoon, teaspoon, or half a teaspoon. So this lovely equipment that I have was purchased at Epicure. There are also Pampered Chef that have these lovely like 4-in-1 spoons, which I think is super beneficial because I like to have my workstation just small, and then I would just wash this every time I use it. And then I also have, this is a Pampered Chef measuring cup, but you can also just have the 4 stacked measuring cups. That's totally fine as well. The reason that I like the measuring cup from Pampered Chef is just that it's obviously all in one. Same thing, I would do my dry ingredients on this side and then my wet ingredients on this side, and make sure I wash it as I went. Lastly, I do like to have a cheese grater. I don't always use a cheese grater, but it is something that is definitely important to have on hand sometimes because a lot of recipes do call for cheeses, or for me, I do a lot of grated vegetables. All right, so the last couple tips. So I'm gonna give you guys, just don't mind my messy kitchen. The last couple tips I'm gonna give you guys for effective meal prepping is really focusing on how to organize your starting prep so that while you're prepping, ingredients are on hand and close. So I organize my prep station right next to my fridge. That is because I like to go in and out of my fridge and replace my sauces as I go. This is usually not really going to happen for most people. So what I recommend is making sure that you have your very important meal plan. And then I like to have, what I do is I will go into Canva or Google Drive and I actually take screenshots. So I screenshot first the ingredients and preparation instructions for like the 4 or 5 recipes I'm going to be making during the week. Weekends, I like to actually keep my creativity in the kitchen open, and that's when I try new recipes. So I generally like to be a little bit different on the weekends, but during the week is when I meal prep for. So I have, and the reason there's only 4 is because one of them is in my head. But because once you make certain recipes enough times, you won't even need these anymore, right? But it's good to have them. I print them once. So what I do is I actually screenshot just the ingredient and instructions part, and then I stick them and copy paste them kind of like a collage in Google Drive or Canva, whichever one you have. Both are free, so you can easily do this. And then I keep this together. And if this was a successful meal plan, which for me it was, especially for this 11 to 7 shift that I gave an example for in the video prior, I'm actually going to reuse this. So it's going to go in this lovely binder in a, just at the back, where I'm going to now be able to go back and use this every single time, every 5 weeks when I work this shift. So for me, that's super important to have organization and simplicity. So this is now, by myself doing this and still having my grocery list and all of this organization, it took me 1 hour once to get it organized, do my searching through Pinterest, organizing through my email, and then printing this off and organizing it. And now I'm going to actually every 5 weeks just reuse what I already have. So that hour is now going to be good for the whole year. I'm happy with the meals that I have every 5 weeks for a year that are crock pot meals for my family, and it's a variety, and they are all from different cultures. So it's kind of fun. So now saying that, what else can I do to meal prep effectively to keep my life simple during the week? Well, you can really meal prep for almost every meal. For example, in breakfast, it's really great to meal prep smoothies. Now, how does that look? These are a few tips that I'm going to tell you of things that have happened that I have seen happen that don't always work out. When you're meal prepping for breakfast, make a point to meal prep in a smaller bag. I'm going to hold my small bags out, but that's okay. Just imagine this is a bit of a smaller bag. And let's just say you wanted bananas, mango, spinach, and something else. Some chia seeds, that's fine. So just make sure that when you're meal prepping, you do them per smoothie, not just cutting up all the bananas and putting the bananas all in one bag, thinking that you're going to be able to separate them later. I have seen this countless times, and it's okay. It's going to happen maybe to some people, but you are not going to cut perfect pineapples and they're all going to come out in separate squares. They're going to come out as one big block, and it's just going to lead to frustration and annoyance. So when you're cutting for smoothies and prepping for smoothies, make a point to prep per smoothie. What's great about that is you can literally just crack open the bag. You can wash the bag if you want, if you're using reusables, and then you can just throw it in your blender, throw a bit of liquid, and it literally took you less time than throwing one of those fake pancakes in that you could, buy at the store pre-made, and has way more nutritional value, will keep you fuller and give you more energy throughout the day. Now, let's talk about lunch times. We don't usually, my favorite thing to do for lunch times is to either eat a salad or focus on prepping a really great meal plan, and then having lunches as leftovers for both my husband and I. What's really great about that is just always focus on cooking once, prepping for 2 to 3 meals, and then you can always, once it's cooked, refreeze it for later. Now, the other thing that I do really like to focus on prepping is making sure I cook a batch, and I'll show you because my fridge is right here. I will show you what I pre-cooked this week. Whoops, as I throw stuff on the ground. But I'm going to show you what I cooked for this week. It's going to take 2 seconds here. So quinoa and whole grain rice. This is a lot, right? But this is easy. I can throw it in soups. I can throw it as a side. I can throw it with my vegetables. This is a way to be able to have vegan stir fries, vegetarian stir fries, or whatever it is that you really want. Or if you are someone who is a meat eater, you can easily just really focus on having a whole bunch of different meats that are in beautiful sauces that take like 5 seconds to make, having a variety of them, and then just making sure you side that with a vegetable rather than with starch, right? So, because the way that we eat our foods is super important for easy digestion and better assimilation so that we can actually use that better as energy. Now, I think that pretty much covers, and my time is running out, but I think that pretty much covers how to effectively meal plan. Making sure your station is always clean, making sure that you wipe down after every time, and really focusing on meal planning once a week for about an hour. Really, if you have your sauces, ingredients, spices, meats, and things cooking on the stove, such as your lentils, beans, or your grains, you can really have this completed in about an hour to an hour and a half. Your first time, give yourself extra time, especially if these are all new recipes. Remember how long it usually takes you to make a new recipe on a weekend that you're trying to make. It always takes double the time. So just be aware and be forgiving with yourself at the beginning. It is something that will become so easy and so quick for you over time if you stick with it. So just maintain a constant schedule with it and bring your family in to help you out. So I hope that this helps you with really seeing how an effective meal plan station can be, what to prepare in advance, and just knowing that there are some days where even though you've meal planned everything, maybe there's some foods you don't want, but you'll always have some pre-cooked foods you can throw together for simplicity. To make a stir fry full of vegetables can literally take you about 15 minutes. So there is no reason why we cannot eat healthy and still focus on being organized and still live our lives, you know, full of self-care, full of extra time for joy and spending time with our families or doing the things we love. All right, so I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and I hope we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.